Dean, did you know Aaron Swartz?
Yes, I did, and it is a real tragedy. He's a brilliant kid and very committed, and the story. I have to say, I feel bad. I did know him, and I communicated with him. I knew of his arrest, of course. I had no idea of the charges he was facing. I mean, if your listeners don't know, he'd been downloading academic articles. His intention was to make them available to the public. So he downloaded, I believe it was hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of academic articles. He was going to make them freely available to people that anyone could click onto them without paying. And it's a violation of copyright law, no doubt about it. He got caught, and my assumption was, he's facing, a suspended sentence, something. But the prosecutors, federal prosecutors under the Obama administration, were pressing charges that could have put him in jail for decades.
For 30 years, I understand.
Yeah, and with this hanging over his head, he ended up committing suicide. Now, obviously, other issues there. I don't mean to say they, forced him to commit suicide, but as I say, it's just striking. I look at this, I go, here you have this young man that was trying to make information, academic work, available to the public, and they could take the resources to press these charges. And then you look at the Wall Street banks who passed on tens of billions of dollars in fraudulent mortgages to enrich themselves, and not one of them has been charged.
Well, it reminds me, they seem to be going after the little guy in the mortgage brokers who were doing their thing. It seems like they're willing to press charges against them, but not the players who were actually pulling the strings.
Yeah, and just to be clear, because I've had people say, well, there was nothing illegal there. Well, it will vary, but the basic story here is if I'm at Citigroup, if I'm at Merrill Lynch, and I have a pile of mortgages that have all sorts of blatant improprieties in them, things that clearly don't make sense, and I just stuff them into a mortgage-backed security and sell them off wherever, that's fraud.
Right.
And could you prove that? I don't know. Is there any reason I think they tried? No.
So, Dean, I just want to ask you this last question. What do you think the state of capitalism is today? I mean, we seem to have this super capitalism on steroids, capitalism at all costs, making money at all costs, and the government seeming to aid and abet some of this. What is your take on where we are?
Well, I think we're in an unsustainable situation in the sense that these people just are not. There's no one who's doing long-term thinking. Go back to the 40s, 50s, and 60s. You had capitalism. People made plenty of money. That was a stable system. This is not a stable system. It wasn't a stable system before things blew up in 2008. It's not a stable system today. And the thing is, these people do not want to think about that. All they're doing is going, hey, profits are back to their pre-recession level. The stock market is back to where it was in 2007. Why are you bothering me?
So if you were president of the world, what kind of what changes would you make?
Well, think long term. Look, we lift people out of poverty after World War II in much of the developing world. We could move forward. I mean, one of the things I will look to and say is, really a great story in China. You've had huge improvements in living standards for large chunks of their population. I don't want to, sing the praises of the government. It's a dictatorship. Lots of bad things you could say about it, but there have been enormous improvements in living standards there. In many countries in Latin America. We could build on that, see those countries as friends rather than enemies. And, the problem we're facing today, it's really kind of an absurdity. We're poor because we have a lack of demand. What we have to do is get money into pockets of people who will spend it, and that will make us all better off. So it's utterly absurd that, we have so many people suffering from unemployment simply due to the fact we don't have enough demand in the world economy today.
Dean Baker, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having me on, Maya.
Well, that's it for another edition of Pivot Point with Maya Rocky Moore. As always, I'd like to thank my listening audience and my production team of Peter James Callahan, Rich Webster, and Courtney. Finally, I'd like to remind our listening audience to please join us live every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on weactradio.com or 1480 a.m. if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. Until next time, America.